What's up, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. My name is Zach Hernandez. I'm joined by my friends Matt Llewellyn and Scott Geelan. Guys, how you guys doing?
I'm good.
Good, thank you, Zach.
All right. Today, guys, we're going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and more specifically what the film says about his play. You guys may have noticed we're joined by Scott. He's a stats guy, goes into it pretty good in depth. Scott, what does the film and the stats tell you about Jimmy Garoppolo?
I think when you kind of try and look across a broad variety of numbers, the stats in the film match up pretty well. If you cherry pick isolated things, you can create headlines from stats that perhaps don't match the film. But when you look across it quite broadly, you see basically a similar picture of a quarterback who's in that sort of 10 to 15 range, who has some very valuable strengths, but also some notable weaknesses that kind of perhaps limit him from cracking what would that kind of top five, but certainly shouldn't stop him from, if he makes a few tweaks to his game, cracking kind of the top 10 on a fairly consistent basis.
Okay, so essentially what you were saying is he's an upper level new quarterback, so to speak, second, third year, but he's not trash, definitely, which is what a lot of fans are kind of saying. We've heard a lot of people say in this system, one, almost anyone can have success, and two, going a step above and saying, why is Jimmy in there? Put Nick Mullins in there. What separates Jimmy Garoppolo from Nick Mullins?
I think with Jimmy, it all starts from his mechanics. The way he can kind of generate torque from his hips through to his shoulders gives him basically a very quick release. And that does a couple of things. In the kind of the 49ers under center, drop back pass, play action offense, Jimmy Garoppolo, when he's making those kind of quick strikes, he's working off three-step drops. That can create kind of cluttered pockets, pressure in his face, and the fact that he doesn't have to step into throws, the fact that he can throw off unusual bases, which is a product of his mechanics, means that he can continue to execute that kind of quick strike offense that the 49ers like without even with pressure in his face. Whereas Mullins, we saw struggled a little bit in that regard. He isn't quite as willing to stand in there in the face of pressure as Jimmy G. And the other thing that Jimmy G has over Mullins that his mechanics allow him to do is he's just better on the move. That kind of same ability to throw from perhaps unusual throwing bases means that he's good at rolling left, he's good at rolling right, he's better at extending plays and making plays on the run that sort of Nick Mullins can't do. Whereas Nick Mullins can execute some of the more basic elements of this offense. When things start to break down, that's kind of when you see the separation really emerge between those two players. And I think that's what sets Jimmy Garoppolo apart from guys like Jared Goff. So that would be kind of a comparison of perhaps another player that you see who he's fine just executing the kind of the bare bones of the offense. But when things start to go a little bit wrong, that's when kind of the guys really, the difference between quarterbacks can emerge more readily. And Jimmy Garoppolo is certainly superior to Nick Mullins in that regard.
Okay, that's nice to know because, you know, if you were just going based on Twitter replies, you would think they're equal, if not Nick is better. Matt, we watched roughly a year and a half full, or season and a half, I should say, full of Jimmy Garoppolo. Has he exceeded your I'll say that again. Has Jimmy Garoppolo met or exceeded your expectations thus far?
He's been good. I don't want to say great. And, you know, Scott talks about the mechanics. The one area where I think that him not needing to generate that much torque and that really hurts him is in the deep ball. There's almost no weight transfer. And I feel when you're in those intermediate routes that are over the middle between the numbers, that's where he excels. Pinpoint accuracy. He'll put the ball where he needs to. But if you watch him, he doesn't throw down the field outside the numbers. He just doesn't do it. He's not throwing fly routes. He barely throws deep posts, only occasionally. And I think part of that is the further the ball gets away from Jimmy Garoppolo, the more that lack of actually stepping into a throw makes the ball kind of, sail from left to right. As far as Nick Mullins, the proof is in the pudding. Jimmy's better than Nick Mullins. I've always thought Nick Mullins had a noodle arm, and it's pretty apparent when you watch the velocity on their ball. He has almost no zip. So as far as exceeding expectations, I can't really say that. We haven't seen him enough. Wins, he's done a great job. His record speaks for itself. I'd like to see some development from him, though, going forward and taking this team to the next level, because I do think that he does have an extra gear. He just needs the actual playing experience to kind of reach it. Deep ball is a huge concern, and if he can, get that down and clean up some of his questionable decision making at times, I mean, he's going to be there.
The questionable decision making, I think, is the biggest thing for me. We saw a lot of forced passes, a lot of passes that he just simply should have made. There's no excuse for it. And at the most clutch moments in the game where you need your quarterback at the very least to not turn the ball over, he's either put the ball in danger and harm's way or completely made a turnover. Scott, Matt touched on there his deep ball, which has kind of been his Achilles, so to speak. Statistically speaking, is that something that quarterbacks can improve on as their career kind of goes on, or is it however it is right now? That's the best it's going to be. That's all it's going to be for Jimmy, his deep ball right now.
I think generally speaking, there is kind of a small degree of improvement that you can make in the pros. The general kind of consensus is that accuracy doesn't improve drastically in the pro game when you're sort of from what you were doing in college. And we've seen players improve their deep ball. Lamar Jackson would be an obvious recent example of someone who has improved his deep ball. I believe Aaron Rodgers is someone who's improved his deep ball since coming into the NFL. There are a few examples, but I think these are when you talk about Lamar Jackson, you talk about Aaron Rodgers. These are guys who you could argue have a little bit more arm talent than a Jimmy Garoppolo might have, particularly Aaron Rodgers. So kind of the extent to which we'd be looking for improvement, I don't think it's something we should be relying on. We're talking about outliers here. So it's possible, but I certainly think statistically speaking that the evidence is that it's highly unlikely that he's going to improve it substantially over what it is today.
So essentially, it's just not his game. It's not something that he can go to repeatedly and find success. And I mean, if you're asking me, I think he's in the perfect system to where he's not asked to do that repeatedly, especially to win games. So it's kind of the perfect marriage. Matt, is it the perfect marriage? Because, the 49ers run the ball a lot. He's with arguably the best play caller in the NFL. Would Jimmy have this sort of success with another team?
He might have had it in New England. I mean, Belichick's good at scheming as well. You just got to think about Kyle Shanahan and how talented he is, getting the most out of the talent that he has. And Jimmy Garoppolo is able to, helm this offense well enough to get them to the Super Bowl with no first round skill talent at any of the skill positions on offense. And now he gets a Brandon Ayuk to kind of, build upon that. And we're going to see Debo year 2. George Kittle again, maybe another step forward, or just being George Kittle will be enough. And once you get the weapons around him, now we're going to see, with experience in Kyle's offense, this is going to be the year that Jimmy either takes a huge step forward or we know what he is. My concern is that if he doesn't improve that deep ball at all, then maybe teams start to scheme to take away the things that he does well. Maybe you shade your zone to the inside, to the hash marks, because Jimmy loves to throw between the numbers. Take away the underneath stuff that Jimmy likes to do. I also think that getting Jet McKinnon, if he can come back as a pass catching back, will be a huge asset. Tevin Coleman led the team last year with 21 catches. And for a Kyle Shanahan offense, that's a small amount of catches for a running back. So with the new weapons around him and a little bit more growth, hopefully Jimmy can take a step forward. So that way, we can say that this is a perfect marriage.
It would be something, definitely an added dimension to this team because, like you said, 21 catches for Tevin Coleman, that's not much for a Kyle Shanahan offense. And you could tell when they originally signed Jet, they were stoked to have him. And it's been 2 years now, and it's like, just letdown after letdown. I really hope he has it in him this year to come back strong. Scott, I have one last question for you here. What's your favorite, I don't even know if you have one, but what's your favorite Jimmy Garoppolo stat? Just if people kind of say he's not a good quarterback or the 49ers should look to move on, what's your go-to that, you can say actually he is, and this is why?
I think it's just his accuracy. I think he's he comes to be top 10, maybe sort of very near top 5 in terms of his PFF adjusted completion percentage. And that's partly a product of the offense and what Kyle's doing, but it is essentially what he is good at. He is very good at. And when you have an offensive mind like Kyle Shanahan, when you have a roster construction like that, which John Lynch has managed to create for him with the likes of Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, the running backs, potentially Jalen Hurd, Brandon Ayuk now, Kendrick Bourne, Trent Taylor, guys that can either uncover quickly and sort of take passes, for 5 or 6 yards a pop, or even just, take a 6-yard pass and turn it into a 25-yard game. That's kind of all you need for him. You just need him. We just need him, as Matt said, to just look after the ball a bit better on those underneath routes. Because even if his deep ball doesn't improve, if his awareness of dropping linebackers and things just improves, then suddenly that dink and dunk offense becomes highly efficient. And what we've actually seen is Drew Brees. Like, we've seen him now for the last 3 or 4 years just be a top tier NFL quarterback with dink and dunk offense, because he never ever turns the ball over. And if Jimmy Garoppolo can improve his ball security and play in the dink and dunk, make the throws, hit the right players, then I think we could see Jimmy Garoppolo hit that kind of ceiling, because he's so routinely accurate on the underneath stuff.
Well, one thing remains to be seen is that let me restart that. One thing is for sure, Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers both have a lot in store for 2020. And even though, look, they went to the Super Bowl last year, 4 or 5 minutes away from winning it, there's still a lot for this team to prove, and a lot for each individual player to prove. So it's gonna be big for this team, and hopefully they step up to a plate. That's gonna do it for us today, guys. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Niners News here on 49ers Hive. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, and also make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment below.
Hit the bell for all your notifications. We're bringing you 49ers content every day.